Hello. Thanks for coming today. It's really good to see you all. I see some Facebook friends here, some Twitter friends.
Yay!
With the wings. She's been telling me about the wings for like 2 weeks. So I'm like really excited to see them. So how we usually do it is I just do a Q&A at the start. So it's really informal, and if you have any questions, you know, throw them at me. So officially it is the launch of Archangels Blade. And for the, I assume most of you read the Guild Hunter series. So this is Dimitri's book. And it's an interesting book because when I originally began writing this series, it wasn't meant to be a series. Angel's Blood was meant to be a one-off. And so when I had these secondary characters, I didn't sort of think, oh yes, they're going to make a good hero, or I just wrote them, you know. And so Dimitri, he was a bit of a, how shall we say this in a polite? He was not very heroic. So he's a very dark character, but at the same time he was so compelling, and I knew a bit of his history already. And so when I had written Archangel's Consort, the third book, I thought Elena and Raphael in a good place, and I felt I could move on to another character without sort of damaging their story or kind of leaving it on a cliffhanger, because I felt like they were in a good place in the third book. And I definitely want to return to them later, but this story was just like inside me. I just wanted to write it, and when I was writing it, there were these places in the book where I was like, oh my god, everyone's just saying, I think this is like not very romantic, and I can't believe he just did that. But if I had watered down Dimitri's character, I think it would have done a real disservice to the book, because he is very hard. He's got all these edges. He's quite brutal, and so he had to be Dimitri for the book to work, you know. And having said that, I do think this is a very, very deeply romantic book, even with who he is, you know, how hard he is. So I hope you enjoy it. And the floor is open for questions. So, who wants to start it off? Who's going to be brave? Yes, go.
The next one in the Archangel series, do you know who it's going to be about?
So the next actual Archangel thing coming out is, there's going to be 2 novellas coming out, one in October, which is Angel's Wolf, and it's going to feature Noel, who was an Archangel's Kiss, and he was beaten quite badly, and an angel, and it's set in New Orleans. And then next year we've got Angel's Dance as part of the Angels Blade anthology, and that is Jesme and Galen. And it's a novella, but it's a longer novella than usual, so you're going to get their story. And as for the next full-length Guild Hunter book, I haven't quite decided yet, because currently I'm working on there's a book for Olivia, just a subtle one, because right now I'm working on Tangled, which is the next Archangel book, so I'm really sort of focused on that. I mean, but I've got things sort of working away at the back of my mind as to what the next book might be, and in a world exclusive, I think, you know, right now I'm thinking perhaps Jason. It's a possibility, you know, he's quite a strong character, and I know a lot about him, and I think it'll be a very good book, but again, that's not yet confirmed. You know? I like to leave all my options open, just in case I suddenly decide to do an Elena and Raphael book, so no one says, but you said, you know. But yeah, you know, it's an interesting series because there is that ability to do books on secondary characters, as well as, you know, Elena and Raphael, who have been in 2-3 books. So there's just such a lot of room to grow. You know. Yeah. So, you know, I kind of gave you a non-answer, but possibilities. Yeah. Right. Next question. Yes. Oh, the back. Yes. Okay. Yellow.
I knew that you were going to write this series will be shorter than the side changeling, but how short is it going to be?
How short is it going to be? So I'm currently contracted for 4 more books after this one, So there's going to be at least 4 more. But I do think, like for example, Side Changing, I'm writing book 11 now, and I can still see a lot more books in that series. I think this series, I don't know, you know, it's hard to say because sometimes you say and you find there's a secondary character you really like, but at this stage I think you know, the 4 books that I'm contracted for, I know there's stories for those 4, and then after that I guess I'll decide. But the thing with this book is it has a very small core cast. You know, the Side Changing cast is much, much bigger, and the world is, I mean, you see a lot more of the world. So I think the way this series is structured, it wouldn't work as well if you moved outside that core cast into like secondary characters that you maybe don't know as well or don't care as much about. I think a lot of the impact of the series comes from the emotional reaction to the characters. You know, because we're quite invested in like Elena and Raphael and the 7, and so in my mind the core cast is the 7, Elena and Raphael of course, and some of the hunters who you've come to know. And once you start going beyond that, you're going to not see as much of the core cast. So I don't want to do that. So which is why I think it will be a shorter series than the Side Changing. But having said that, there is obviously room in this series for multiple books about one couple. So, you know, who knows? Maybe down the road I could decide to do a second book about, you know, Dimitri. At this stage that's just a possibility, but yeah. But in terms of all the different characters, I don't think you'd move much. You're not going to get a lot more new characters introduced. The new characters are likely to be the love interest that you're going to see, because it's not obviously going to be just people you know from the books, because that would be very incestuous and not very interesting. So you will be getting those new characters. Yeah. Right.
I was just going to ask how you managed to write several series, a couple of series at the same time. It must be very challenging.
Yeah, it can be challenging. I think what helps is they're actually very different. They're very, very different. There's no crossover, basically. And I think if there had been crossover, it would be much more difficult to write it because I would be worrying about mixing details. But there's really no worry about mixing the details because the series are so different. So in that way, each time I finish, for example, I finish this Archangels book and then I go in to write a Guild Hunter book, I feel really fresh going back into the world anew because I usually haven't been in that world for several months since I turned in the last book. So for example, you know, I turned in Galen and Jessamine's novella in like June, I think, and so I won't go back to writing a Guild Hunter until Tangle of Need is turned in, which is going to be almost half a year. So, you know, when I step back in, I'm always excited because I'm like, ooh, I missed this world, you know, and vice, you know, each time with every book. So in that aspect, there's no difficulty. The one thing that takes a lot of work is making sure the continuity is coherent from book to book. So all the little tiny details of the series, because the world, what makes the series strong is if the world is strong and if it's believable. And each book, you know, is part of the same continuum. You don't want people to open up a book and go, oh, but in the previous book this happened. How come this has suddenly happened? And so that I do spend a lot of time trying to get that right. But obviously I'm human and I'm sure mistakes are going to happen. So sorry in advance. But I try, you know, I do try really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. And what this means is I've got a lot of tags through all my books. I have copies of my books and there's all these post-its, you know, and I have electronic files and yeah. So that part is detail work. Yeah. Great. More questions? Yes.
So how did you start the series? How did you get the idea?
Which one, the Guild Hunter?
Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting. So I was writing the Side Changing series, and I think, so when did the first Guild Hunter book come out? 2009, I think, 10? 9, maybe? So I had written, I think, 4 or 5 Side Changing books already, and I was doing 2 a year, and I thought, and I had just recently gone full-time as a writer. So previously I'd been working full-time and writing full-time. So when I went full-time as a writer, I thought, oh, I have all this time. Oh, lots of time. And at first, I wasted all that time. Because I was like, oh, I can do this another day because I have all this time. But, eventually I settled down. And what I found was that because I was so used to working, quite efficiently with my time, I had a lot more time. So I thought, right, I can do 3 books a year. And I thought, well, I'm already writing a series, so instead of starting another series, I want to do some standalone books. Because, as I say, it can get quite complex keeping track of all the details of 2 different series. So, and after telling everybody who knew me that I was never ever going to write a vampire book, ever, this is not a vampire book, I started writing Archangels Blade, and I don't quite know where it came from. I think I just had this image one day in my mind of an archangel in a tower in New York, and I thought, what is he doing here? There, it's such an incongruous image, and he was using a cell phone. So it was like, what's up with that? So I just started writing it, and I didn't really think about it too much. I think if I had, I would have maybe stopped, because it's kind of a weird concept, with the angels and the vampires in New York. And I just wrote it, and then I sent the proposal to my agent, and I think the subject said, this is not a vampire book. I sent it to her and I said, oh, this is my standalone that I'm doing, and she wrote back and she said, but it's not finished. I said, nobody will notice. I knew it wasn't a standalone, but I was like trying to convince myself, because I didn't really want to be writing 2 series simultaneously, but it was just such a powerful story, and I thought, you know what, I want to know what happens next. Because I'd always wondered about, these paranormal romances you read, or urban fantasies where the mortal gets involved with an immortal, or there's a change and she becomes an immortal, and I always wondered, how does she deal with that? It's like such a big change, and you never really find out, because it ends with the ending is usually them together and her being made a vampire or whatever. And so that was just something I really wanted to explore. And so that the second books have been that, that idea of what next, after you've made this big change in your life. How do you deal with that? And the rest of it just grew from there. Right. Who's got another question? Oh, okay. Green top first.
Oh, that's not alright.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much. I love your books.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a closet romance reader, but I had to come up for this thing.
Oh, she's come
Good
out of
girl.
the closet for us. Yay!
I just had a query regarding writing. So how do you fit it into your life, or how does...
You mean like if you're working full time?
Yeah.
Or whatever? If you really, want to be successful as a writer, you have to make some sacrifices, especially if you are working full time. So at one stage I was working as a lawyer, and I'm sure you can understand there's not a lot of free time when you're in that kind of a high pressure job. So basically what I did was I didn't watch TV, So that hour that you would watch TV, I would write. I wrote on the bus in rush hour traffic. So you really have to carve out that time from your day, and you have to be quite determined about sticking to it. I think a lot of people say, I'll write when the muse strikes, or I'll write when I have free time. But if you really, really want to get into writing and be successful at it, you have to set aside that time and just do it every day. Even if you think, oh my god, everything I'm writing today is crap, doesn't matter. You need to just write every day, because you need to get I always say your writing skills are like a muscle, and you need to train the muscle. And I'm at the point where if I don't write for a few days, I start to get real antsy.